Hello and welcome to my studio. My name is Vivica Hansen-Tenegri, and today I'm going to be sharing with you an updated version of an ancient Korean technique called Pojagi. And it's a technique that I use to make this scarf. Here's a better picture of this headscarf. It's made entirely of silk fabrics, Asian silk fabrics, and you can see from the seams on the outside that there is a stitch line all the way around all of the individual squares. And if I turn the piece over, you're going to see two stitch lines. And this is what makes this an interesting technique. All of the seams are finished on the inside, there are no raw edges, and this does not need to be lined to make it a useful project. So I have my machine set up for doing Pojagi. When you do it at home, I'm assuming that you will have matching threads on the top and the bottom, but I want you to see what I'm doing. So I've put black on the top and white in my bobbin. I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance foot on the machine, and I have my fabrics all ready to go. So I have both fabrics right sides together. The one on the top right here, the yellow one, is about 1/4 inch inside the one on the back. And I'm going to sew my first seam right here. This is done at 1/4 inch. Okay, so I have my seam here, and I'm going to iron the seam just to press it down a little bit. And I'll take the piece, and I'm going to iron the seam allowance toward the front fabric, which is this yellow one. Make a nice crease. I find it easier to work this direction. And then I'm going to fold the seam allowance from the bottom fabric over the top fabric. I fold it in by about 1/4 inch. And again, press that one down. Now the thing to remember about this when you're doing it is that your bottom fabric is going to have a 1/2 inch seam allowance because you've had the 1/4 inch that you've sewn in and the 1/4 inch that you fold over. And your top fabric has a 1/4 inch of a seam allowance. So when you're cutting out your fabrics, you might find that you have a little bit of an extra fabric on the edge, so you might have to trim things down when you're done. After I've ironed that seam, I take it back over to the sewing machine. Alright, so now we're going to do our second seam. I have to change feet for this. I'm changing from that particular foot to a hemstitch foot. And the reason I do this is that the metal piece that's on the inside of the hemstitch foot helps me get a really great straight seam. I move my needle over and just sew right there. So what I have is a perfectly finished seam. There's no raw seam allowance, no edge of the fabric that's showing. And remember again that the white fabric is the white thread is the bottom thread, and the black thread is the top thread. So you can see you really are showing on both sides of your piece. You're seeing both of these. And I'm going to turn it over so you can see what it looks like when it's done. Isn't that pretty? You've got a really nice seam right here. And in this technique, the seam allowance can actually become part of the design of the fabric. So when I hold this piece that we just sewed up to the light, you can see how the seam allowance can become part of the whole overall design of your finished product. And if you use a really sheer fabric or a two-sided fabric, the piece becomes two-sided. And let me show you a piece that does that. This is a scarf that uses hand-dyed fabrics, and you can see that the seams are part of the design. This would be a wonderful technique to use in a curtain or in something that is held up to the light, in a vest that you don't want to have to do any lining for. It's just a great technique.